Hey everyone, Assalamualaikum. I'm Manahil Remotejobwali. I'm a student at Rehan School. Today I'm with a very interesting guest. Her name is Danielle. So without further ado, let's start our conversation and learn something new with her. So welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Manahil. I'm good. I'm great. Thank you. Nice to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for giving me your precious time. It's an honor for me to talk with you. So, before moving on questions, would you please introduce yourself for my viewers?
Yes. So I'm Danielle Hughes. I am, excuse me, I am the Chief Personality Officer of More Than Words Marketing. And what I do is I help people develop what I call their personality brand so that you can show up as yourself in professional spaces. So that usually takes the form of how do you show up on LinkedIn, your executive profile, your bio, etc. And I help people figure out how do they want to tell their career story and what do they want to be known for.
All right, thank you so much for your fantastic introduction. So now let's move on to the questions. My first question is on your screen. At what age should we start preparing young people for the professional world, and what should that preparation look like at each stage?
Oh, that's a great question. Part of me thinks that we push young people too quickly into the professional world, and we don't give them enough time to be kids and to figure things out and to try different things. But I do think that as like a teenager, starting to have some kind of part-time job and starting to like be in the workforce helps you build character, helps you kind of learn about the world, learn about customer service. So I think like getting a job as a teenager and working part-time is really important to kind of build some of those skills. But then I feel like in college is when, or university is when most people should be sort of thinking about what does that preparation look like? What is required? I think, when the kids go to school, for the most part, it's you're learning, but you're not actually doing. You don't really understand what it's actually like to be in the real world and have a job. So helping them kind of figure out, from my perspective, it's like, what is your brand moving forward? How do you want to show up? What are the types of places and spaces that you want to work in? What are the things that interest you? So I feel like it's a really good time to start thinking about where you want to go and what you're interested in your, late teens, early 20s.
All right, that's really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that important thing. So now let's move on to the next question. So my next question is education versus skills. So do you believe our current education system is aligned with the future job market? If not, what are the most critical changes needed?
So I think this depends on what country you live in. But I would say in the US, I do not think that our current educational system prepares you for the job market. I think it's woefully behind in terms of technical skills. Unless you go to a specialized school, I feel like kids are not being taught enough in terms of AI and coding and the technical skills, but they're also not being taught the people and interpersonal skills. They're not understanding resiliency, how to take criticism, how to listen, how to learn. So I think we have a long way to go. And I almost feel like we're moving backwards in terms of protecting kids too much so that they don't even know what to expect. And then when they're in the job, they're just woefully unprepared for what's required of them.
That's really a fantastic answer. Thank you so much for that answer. So now let's talk about how can parents and educators encourage career direction without pushing their own expectations onto the students.
So I have a son who's about to be a junior in college, so I can totally understand this question because he is nothing like me. And I think it's, as a parent, it's your job to raise the child you have, not raise the child to be you or the child that you, quote unquote, might have wanted or expected. I think it's about obviously giving your kids a push and encouragement, but I think we have to let them develop on their own and find what's going to work for them. I think anytime you push somebody into doing something just because you want them to do it, chances are it's going to backfire and they're going to resent it. And a lot of times, if you step back and you allow them to fail and try and struggle, they will eventually find the thing that gives them the most meaning, but you have to let them get there on your own. So you don't want to be so hands off. I think it's okay to help foster connection, help them, set up interviews or talk to people. But at the end of the day, they have to do the work and it's their choice because it's going to be their life.
Yeah, you are right. Thank you so much for your answer. So, what practical steps should a 16 years old take today to start moving forward financial independence before graduation?
I mean, to financial independence at 16, that would be amazing. I think, definitely getting a part-time job for sure. I think it's understanding until you work, you don't understand the value of money, right? If you're only just taking money from your family or your parents, you don't appreciate it. But when you have to earn it and understand how to save it or spend it, it makes you smarter. I think learning about the markets and investments and what are the things that you want to put your money into that will pay dividends in the long run, not just like buying stocks, but buying things for the long term, bonds, high yield savings accounts. But I think also at like the age of 16, it's just about exploring and trying. And I feel like the financial independence at 16 seems crazy to me because I think when you're young, you're supposed to kind of make mistakes and mess up and maybe spend too much, but starting to understand the repercussions of that behavior as well, that money is finite and the more you protect it, the longer you'll have it.
So, you mean like we have to learn, then we can earn money easily in
Yeah,
future.
I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's easily, right? Because working and earning money is hard and finding jobs that pay you what you're worth is hard. But I think at 16, it's just about like getting that experience and going out there and understanding what the value of money is, thinking about putting some of it away so that you're saving it, but then having some to spend because you should be able to, enjoy what you are making. And that's like part of the fun is to have your own money. But thinking about it as part of it needs to be for your future so that that grows and part of it is for now. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that answer. So now let's move on to the next question. My next question is, how important is building a digital identity, LinkedIn portfolio, personal brand for teenagers and early 20s students?
Yeah. So I think it's very important. I think, everything that we do in terms of like our LinkedIn and our digital identity is going to evolve over time. And I find that what a lot of students that I talk to and work with, they feel like they don't either know themselves enough yet to even form that, or they're worried that they're going to pigeonhole themselves into one aspect. And I think you have to be flexible enough to understand that like who you are now is going to change. So it's okay to start putting out the identity that you currently have, what you think you're interested in or what you're currently interested in. And just know that over time, you're going to have to finesse and tweak and change that. But it's so important to just establish that from the outset. Set up your LinkedIn at the very minimal, say, what you're currently doing, what you're interested in, write a little blurb about yourself and think about, what are the keywords that you want to get found for? Like, what are the things that you want to currently be known for? What are the industries that you're interested in or where are you currently at school? And at least start building connections with people And then over time, as you build more experience and you understand the industries that you're going to be interested in, or you start building your skill sets, you can keep building on it and amplifying. But it's really key to at least have some sort of that presence, because if you don't put yourself out there, people are going to presume something about you. So you're taking control by saying, this is who I am. This is what I'm interested in. This is what I currently want to be known for. And it just puts you in the driver's seat of how you show up.
All right, that's really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing tips for LinkedIn. So now let's move on to the next question. My next question is, how early should a student start real world experience like internship, part-time jobs, or freelancing, and how can they access those opportunities?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I think as soon as you're legally allowed to work, and wherever that, in whatever that age is in different places, or, you can babysit if you're younger. But I think like early to late teenage years, people should be trying to get part-time jobs. And whether that's, talking to people that going to like your place of worship and finding out, posting flyers, or just talking to people there, and putting things up at school, whether you want to be entrepreneurial and start selling things or designing things that you kind of sell to your friends. I think it's really important to start to bring in your own money and start to understand what it's like to be responsible, to like show up someplace on time. Internships are obviously much harder to come by. Here in the US, most people can't get internships until they're juniors or seniors in college. And depending on your industry, they're very, very competitive. So that's why like getting on LinkedIn or like building your network of people that if you have parents that work, that they know friends who know friends who know friends, there's no harm in asking people and telling people what you're looking for, because people want to help. I genuinely feel like everybody really wants to help you. And I think a lot of times, kids are so afraid to ask. And if you tell someone, I'm looking for an internship, I'm looking for a job in this industry, it makes it easy for them to say, oh, I might know someone who I can talk to, or I do know a connection for you. So I think the more specific you can be, the better. But definitely don't be afraid to ask. Otherwise, like my son's found jobs on like Indeed.com, obviously LinkedIn. There's so many job boards and places where you can kind of search on your own and find people that need work and need help.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. You are right. We can find jobs on LinkedIn, Indeed, and LinkedIn is our best websites. I think so. I have tried before. So thank you so much for your answer. So now let's move on to the next question. My next question is for you. What are your best strategies to help students graduate debt free while still getting a quality education?
So, for me, it's if you live in a place where education in your state or in your area is either very inexpensive or highly subsidized, I definitely think it's worth, staying in that area. My son goes to a New York State school. It's much more affordable. He's not going to come out of school with any debt. Whereas if he went to a private school, he would come out with significant debt. I think you have to weigh the costs too of, is it worth going to a certain school for a certain level of prestige? Are you guaranteed to make that money back over time? Is it worth it? Can you get just a good education someplace else? A lot of times could you go to a community college for 2 years so that it is almost free or very inexpensive, and then transfer to another school where maybe you've gotten good enough grades that you'll get a scholarship. A lot of it too is your circumstance. You're born to a family that can afford to send you to college and you're coming out debt free, then you're very lucky. But if you're not, can you work enough to put towards it? Can you work during school? I had a work study program and I had a separate job when I was in college to help offset some of the costs. It's not going to offset all of it, but it's certainly going to help. So I think there's a lot of things you can do. And, I think graduating with a little debt is okay because it helps establish your credit as long as it's something very manageable for you. We're not talking about 6 figures of debt. We're talking about maybe like low 5 figures, something that you can indeed pay off with a low paying job over a few years.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for that answer. So now let's move on to the next question. My next question is, what kinds
Hmm.
of career will be relevant in 2035, and how can student future prove their skill sets?
This is a great question. I honestly think we don't know, right? And we don't know what kind of careers are still going to be relevant in 10 years. But I think AI is going to be a huge component no matter what. So I think having enough of a knowledge of how to use AI for any of the jobs that you're going to be doing. I don't care what field you're in. There's usually a component where AI can help, and I think it's not only going to take away jobs, it will help with performance in the job, and you have to show knowledge of how to use it. So I think that's really important. And then I just think people skills you can never undervalue, because technical skills can always be taught. So somebody can always learn a technical skill, but it is very hard to teach someone how to be a good manager, how to be a good leader, how to be a good worker. So being able to communicate, have difficult conversations, being respectful, understanding how to engage and build relationships with the people that you work with, that to me is an invaluable asset that will make you job proof no matter what.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us amazing answer. So now let's talk about AI. What
Mm.
should students prepare for the increasing influence of AI in all industries, especially if they are not tech focused?
Yeah, so like I just said, I don't think that, like, my job is not tech focused, and I will still use AI because I think it's important to understand how it's working. It can streamline processes, so you can use AI, even like respond to your emails or set like out of office messages or manage your calendar. So even if you're in a field where there's nothing to do with tech, understanding AI, understanding how to use it for questioning, for research, for outlining, planning meetings, it can write meeting outlines, it can help you with presentations. So I think an understanding of like even the basics of just how do you write a good prompt, how do you get the chat or the GPT to understand you and, give you things that are valuable for you. It's the prompting to me is the most important asset, and something that over time, that's how you get better and better, is more comfortable with prompting it in the way that you want it to sound for you and having it learn you and your behavior and your needs.
You're right. Thank you so much for your answer. So, do you think the fear of failure is stronger in today's youth than it was before? And if so, why?
These are such great questions. Yes, I do. And I think it's the parents' fault. I think that we have like flipped to the complete opposite side of the spectrum where, kids were so independent and so on their own. And then we have now moved to a place where kids are so protected and so coddled and so sheltered, and nobody lets their kids fail. Nobody's ever, my child's never at fault, and I think we're doing a really big disservice because we're not building resiliency. We're not building critical thinking. And I don't know what's going to happen to like young people in a world where you can't fail. I think social media has made it harder because you're failing in front of millions of people instead of maybe just a few. It's very different if you tripped at school back in the day versus now you trip at school and it's on video and then they post it on YouTube and all your friends see it, right? Everything is exacerbated. So I feel so much empathy because I think it is so much harder. But I also think it's even more important that we make children more resilient and more able to fail and learn that it's not the end of the world. And like failure is how you learn. if you don't fail, you're never learning. You're never going to get better, because that's what teaches you what to change, what to do differently, what not to do again. I just think failure is the only way to learn.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Failure teach us what to do, what we can do. Failure teach us. Don't we don't afraid from failures. I learned from my life, and thank you so much for that answer. So, what is something you wish parents truly understood about their children's dream?
Mm. I think it's that I wish that they understood that it's their child's dreams and not their dreams, and that it is their job to help that child realize their dreams. Whatever, even if it's not the dream that you would want for them or the dream that you would want for yourself, it's not your life. And I think we need to understand that again, like, and maybe that dream will be the wrong dream for your child and they will have to figure that out and learn. But I think we're there to support them in whatever way we can and to help them realize that they can do whatever they want and achieve whatever they want. And we just have to teach them how to be resilient and dedicated and hardworking in order to do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for your answer. So let's. It's time to imagination. If
Okay.
the future were a blank canvas, how would you paint the perfect system of for preparing children for life?
Whew. God. I mean, I think it would be a combination of play and learning and work, um, where there's much more time for kids to have creativity, to play, to experiment, to have fun. It wasn't like right now with the education system, it's so rigid. We're teaching things that maybe are not relevant or not important, and we're not teaching the things that are relevant and are important. And I would love to see a more flexible model where different types of children got to like learn in different ways and experience things in different ways. And then I definitely think, in like high school and even in college, there needs to be much more like work opportunity where they're, either building something or creating something or working a specific job so that they really understand the value of work. And then, of course, like a finance component, right? What it's like to manage money and understand how money works so that we're really setting people up for being on their own. Because I think right now you're teaching them things, they're learning, but they're going to go into the workforce, but they don't really they're not prepared to be on their own and work on their own. It's still too protected.
You're right. Thank you so much for your answer. Now it's time for a rapid fire round. I
Okay.
will ask questions and you have to answer that, but in one word or a short sentence, and no thinking allowed. So
Okay.
should we start?
Yes. Okay.
All right. Now first is college or skill boot camp.
Sorry, college or skill boot camp?
Yeah.
College.
College. All right. Second is money or meaningful work.
Meaningful work.
All right. Early mornings or late nights.
Early mornings.
LinkedIn or Instagram for building your brand.
LinkedIn.
All right. Failure in youth or regret in old age.
So, say that one more time.
Failure in youth or regret in old age.
Oh, failure in youth.
All right. Work from home or work from anywhere.
Work from anywhere.
Grades or grit.
Say it one more time.
Grades or grit.
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Let me show you on the
Okay.
screen. Grades
Oh,
or grit.
grades or grit. Grit for sure. Grades are relevant. Okay.
Okay, so now let's move on to the next guy. Oh, sorry. A great mentor or a great idea?
Idea.
ChatGPT or human teacher?
Human teacher, of course.
All right. I will ask this answer before after our rapid fire. So, one subject every student should learn.
Say it one more time. Sorry.
One subject every student should learn.
One subject every student should learn. Writing.
Okay. A book that changed your thinking.
Oh, I'm so bad with these. I don't know. We're gonna have to come back to that. Sorry.
Okay. Worst advice you hear too often.
Oh, what's advice I hear too often? There's so much. I know this is rapid fire, but I think like focus on one thing.
Okay. If you had a billboard for students, what would it say?
It would say, um, it's your life. You know, it was just, it's your life. Do what you want.
Okay. One job that won't exist in 10 years.
One job that won't exist in 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, probably like a coal miner. I don't know. That's the first thing I could think of.
Okay, all right. So, if you were 15 again, what would you do differently?
Oh my God, like so many things. I would not worry about what other people think. I would probably, I would laugh a lot more. I would probably disobey my parents more. um, and not worry about being so perfect all the time.
Okay, all right. That was awesome. Love those answers. Fast, honest, and powerful. Thank you so much for playing with me rapid fire round. So now let's talk about. I asked you, ChatGPT or human teacher. You know, ChatGPT knows all answers. ChatGPT has all things. We can learn anything from ChatGPT, but I think we can't learn from a teacher. Teacher have lots of experiences, lots of things to tell us, but ChatGPT have lots of information that human don't have.
Yes.
So why human teacher is important?
Well, I think, first of all, ChatGPT has tons of information. Sometimes it's factually wrong. So that's one. But ChatGPT is never going to care about you. Nobody's ever going to say, ChatGPT believed in me and inspired me to do something. Whereas you hear stories of people who say teachers changed their life because that teacher saw something in them, that teacher believed in them, that teacher nurtured them or mentored them or pushed them. And ChatGPT is a system of information, but it is not inspiration. And I think that you need a teacher to inspire you.
Yeah, that's a deep answer. Thank you so much for that answer. All right, so let's conclude our conversation. What's the last advice would you like to give for my viewers or for students?
First and last advice, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. So I think, like I said, I really think it's important to experiment, to try. Don't get so bogged down in thinking that you have to choose a certain path or that if you make a decision and you go work in a certain field that you're stuck there forever. I think you'll never know, like you never know where life is going to take you. You know, to your point about what's going to be not around in 10 years, you know, I think what I'm doing now didn't exist when I was in college. So there was no LinkedIn, there was no internet, there was no, you know, content creation. There was none of this existed. So you can't possibly know where your life will take you or what your opportunities are going to be. So don't get so stuck. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't think you have to have it all figured out and all planned out, and just be willing to try and go with your gut and do things that make you happy or help you learn, and just try to enjoy and get the most out of every experience.
All right, thank you so much for the lovely advice, and thank you so much for joining me on the future of work. A big thank you to our amazing guest. I'm Daniel, and this is me, Manahil. And thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your wisdom and practical advice on preparing the next generation for success. So, in today's conversation, inspire uh, us or maybe viewers to give a new idea. So don't forget to share this episode with a student, parent, or educator in your life. And remember, the future doesn't just happen, we build it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading. Thank you so much for your time and for your valuable answers again.
Thank you, Manahil.
It was pleasure to me. Thank you. Bye. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Bye.